Dr. Ruxana, it's strange because there's so much that I haven't done, and it's just incomplete. It's just lying incomplete. So I always say Dr. Ruxana encourages all of us so much. The truth is, I haven't done half of the things that I want to do. So just
Oh my
keep
God.
remember me in your prayers.
इंशाल्लाह अब गौहर के बेटा वो आपको को होस्ट बनाया होगा
Okay.
आप अपना उसको देख लें if everything is in order.
Yes, I can share screen, but I think Gohar would probably be sharing first. So I'll just,
नहीं अगर आपने चेक करना है तो कर लें then we will start and I'll
okay.
tell you about के वो structure में as usual हम वही 35-40 मिनट आपके पास होंगे और
Uh,
उसके बाद Q&A
कितने मिनट मेरे पास होंगे? 45?
35 to 40
Okay, okay. I'll just put
and
this on.
then we usually go a little bit over और आज हमारा क्योंकि एक दूसरा सेशन है but it will be after an hour so
Yes.
अगर usually people are going another 10 minutes 15 minutes over so we will take that if there are questions to be answered.
Hmm.
Mavish मेरे साथ co-host करेगी. I'll start the session and she'll then take you don't have to worry about the chat so Mavish will compile the questions and then close it. Hello Mavish.
Hello, Mavish.
We are also trying to match brilliance with brilliance elsewhere. so, so आपका हो गया? Then we'll start with our. Is there something else you need to ask, Sarah?
No, I could share screen, so that's fine as well. Thank you so
Fine.
much.
Okay.
Thank you,
Okay.
Gohar.
Great. Good. So we will keep quiet for a short while, and Gohar has to, walk us through. वो CLT का बताएंगे or a couple of other things. We'll talk about the course, and that will be before the start of the session, so that we don't waste time during the session. So you will have enough time. Abdul Razak from FCCU, are you a student? Just do a hand thumbs up or something. Or are you a faculty? Oh, you're a student. Okay, good to have you. And come over to the office someday to give your feedback. Okay? Course agar aap kar rahe hain, if you're joining the courses, I would love to hear your ideas about how it should be and perhaps we could improve something. We're not taking feedback during these sessions, so it will be helpful to have you. आप अपने ऑफिस में बैठे हो सारा? You're still in your office?
Sorry, let me just put my mic on. I'm actually not in my office. The reason being that my AC is not working. I don't know whether I should say this online. And if there's a blackout, then everything goes off because it's not connected to UPS.
Oh,
So hopefully Bakir's system at home, everything should be working. I've got a back.
okay.
I hope,
Well,
fingers crossed.
that's so sweet of you. Thank you for making the effort. Thank you.
Introducing Research Methodology 2025, your ticket to mastering research, brought to you by the Center for Learning and Teaching at Foreman Christian College University in collaboration with National Academy of Higher Education at the Higher Education Commission and the United Board. This isn't just another course. It's built around the renowned Viti Researcher Development Framework, covering everything from deep subject knowledge to personal effectiveness, professional standards, and real-world impact. We are immensely grateful to our experts who have graciously offered their time and expertise in the spirit of knowledge equity. These experts are among the leading voices in their respective fields. And yes, it's 100% online and totally free, wherever you are in the world. Whether you're a postgraduate, early career researcher, or simply passionate about better research, this course is for you. Join us and be part of a movement for knowledge equity. Sign up now and unlock your research potential.
We have another minute to go. So I guess. Gohar, you are on. You're good to go.
Hello everyone, good morning. I welcome you all to the 8th webinar of our research methodology course, Qualitative Research by Dr. Sara Rizvi. I'll quickly go over the etiquettes for the session. Please note that right now we are in the fourth module, which is the research methodology. And the netiquette for the session, you are all aware, but I go through them again for your ease. You're requested to please rename your Zoom accounts to the name of your university first, and then your name afterwards. You're all requested to please make sure that once we enable chat at after 30 minutes into the session, please just you are requested to please restrict your comments and your chat just to the session details, and whatever you want to ask the questions, only question related. You're requested to please be mindful and sensitive regarding the chat, because we see a lot of you mentioning their names and their university names in the chat, which is not required. You're all requested, for those of you who are joining us on YouTube and through Zoom as well, you're all requested to please make sure that you fill out the certification form. You need to mention your name, your university name, and your email address. And please note that the certificates will be distributed between 8 to 12 working days. And all these sessions will be recorded, and these recordings will be uploaded to the CLT YouTube channel, and free access is available to all. That's it from my side. Over to you, Dr. Roxana.
Thank you, Gohar. I cannot emphasize enough that if you write your name in the chat, that is not going to get you a certification, because we are not going to look at that. So please adhere to that Google form and insert your information there. We will keep on posting the Google form every 10 minutes for those of you who join later. We already have a formidable number, nearly 700, and I see that we have a lot of Pakistani from many parts of the world, far-flung areas in Pakistan. And then there are many from other countries, and notably happy to see Nigeria. I'm happy to see American University of Cairo. I'm very happy to see for the, and many from India. I wonder if I'm missing some. There are quite a few. And we are very honored by your confidence in our series, and largely due to the quality of our experts. I totally understand that's where the pull is. Like God said, this is the 8th webinar of the 4th module. And the 4th module was research methodology. We have done with some basic ones. You will also have another one on quantitative research after this one. Total registration, Sarah, for this session were plus 14,000 plus, and all of them will get your recording and the PowerPoint and the materials. Out of this, there were 12,000 plus national from Pakistan, and international, some 2,000 plus. Gaur says 100 plus countries. Gaur, I'll take that with a pinch of salt and happiness. And all regions of the world, it's starting from Africa, all of Asia, Middle East, Europe, North America, South America, and as far as Australia and New Zealand. We are very, very honored. You will explain your agenda, so I'll leave that. But who is Sarah Rizvi? And if I may, we are proud at FCCU to have you with us, Sarah, a very young but a very able researcher. You are the head of the sociology department, right? Or have you given it up? You've given it up. Okay, I know there's so much at your end, but you were ahead for a very long time. I see that you hold BSc honors in economics from the London School of Economics. I wondered where you got your econometrics in your research. That's where you get it. And you earned your PhD and MPhil from the University of Punjab, but you did a postdoctoral fellowship at the University of Oxford. So you've got all the big names attached, right? You have published over 50 research papers, and your focus is public health, social policy, and women's studies. And you have led multiple grants, and you're also the founding editor of a very good journal, Forman Journal of Social Sciences. And all of you are strongly encouraged to write for that journal, if I may. So over to you, Sarah.
Thank you so much. Thank you, CLT team. Thank you, Dr. Ruxana, Dr. Mehwish, Gohar. This is an amazing service that all of you are providing. I'm just speaking until you can see my screen. Gohar, you can see my screen?
Yes, ma'am, it's visible.
Just a quick other question. Are the slides moving?
Yes, ma'am.
Great. So
Perfect.
thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for the generous comments, Dr. Ruxana. We have a lot to cover. I've started my stopwatch. I've been given about 45 minutes to speak so that we have 15 minutes for question and answer. This 45 minutes, what I'm going to do, based on my experience, is that I'll cover the concepts in part one. And then I have, because, it doesn't make sense otherwise, I have specific samples and examples of qualitative research being presented to disseminate to the world from my journal publications as part two. So what we'll do is that we'll cover part one in 30 minutes, which gives me about 2 minutes per slide. Now, the good news is that you can never talk enough about any of these topics. As researchers and as professors, we'll all agree on this. We over talk, and we over explain, and that's important as well. But the good news is that Gohar has this presentation, and he also has the reading material. And my email address is with everybody for any questions that could not be covered in today's session. So some definitions. One of the basic and there are lots of basic and umbrella definitions. This is one that I've summarized. Which is why there's no citation over here right now. Qualitative research is basically a research strategy that emphasizes words, hidden meanings, interpretations, symbols, rather than quantification, statistics, words, numbers in the collection of data. Now, there is one complexity. Scholars usually stay away from specifying a definition and describing the nature of qualitative research. Number one, because it's been ever evolving, it's ever changing. One of the examples of which I'll just give in the upcoming slides. Hypothesis testing was, qualitative researchers used to stay away from it, but now they're moving towards it. Now, another reason why there's a lot of complexity surrounding defining and qualitative research or specifying its nature is because of its broad range of means of data collection. You've heard of ethnography, which is participant observation. You've heard of qualitative interviewing. Now, this could be just one track, one-on-one interviewing, but then it could also be a quantitative survey, which has one or two qualitative questions at the end. So that's mixed methodology. Again, we'll cover that a little bit later. But then there's also focus group discussions, which is also falls under qualitative research. Some quantitative researchers will say that it falls under them. Then there are finally language-based approaches, also known as discourse and conversation analysis. And finally, the collection and qualitative analysis of texts and documents, where you're not actually collecting data, but you have secondary data and you're analyzing it qualitatively. And so this is one of the reasons why there's a lot of complexity. But at the end of the day, instead of thinking of it as a complexity, we can also think of it as a major advantage of qualitative data collection, which is where there are a wide range of tools and analytical measures. A little bit more about the link between the philosophy of research and then how that leads you towards data collection. So I want you to look at this onion approach, which is very famous. It must be familiar to many of you, and look at the bottom half. You'll notice that interpretivism is somewhere at the bottom half, and you can ignore pragmatism for a couple of seconds. So interpretivism is actually the philosophical background which leads us towards qualitative data collection, for the simple reason that interpretivist philosophers believe that it is not enough to collect quantitative data or statistics, but rather you need to interview and interact with individuals to understand hidden meanings and realities of life. And that can only be done through the tools that we will cover in the next slide, but just in a summary very quickly, through interviewing, focus group discussions, participant observation. Now, having said that, and so you'll notice that as the onion goes to the inner circle, a concentric circle, the data collection process tool that they choose is qualitative. Vice versa, the positivists will always opt for statistics and quantitative data or experimentation, and the pragmatic researcher will opt for both. They will, which is usually something that I opt for. I usually collect both qualitative and quantitative data, and especially when I'm drafting my proposal, I immediately try to gain IRB access for both means so that it saves me from trouble later on. And this is something that I advise the student researchers or young researchers that have joined our session today. Now, the question is why? Given that if somebody has very strong philosophical roots in interpretivism, why might they opt for mixed methods research and also gaining quantitative data? The answer is simple over here. And here's a summary. Let's say we are from an interpretivist background, we want to collect qualitative data, but our question is how many physicians are currently working in private and public sectors of Pakistan? Now, this cannot be answered qualitatively. So in a nutshell, it's basically your research question and your research project that is important. If you want to collect data that is asking about, and I'll give another example, this you're reading on the slides as because it's open in front of you, but let's say you want to quote the average salary of Pakistanis across the different provinces of Pakistan. And obviously, qualitative research and data is important. You want to interview people and ask them, listen, why do you think you're getting below average salary based on the graduation degree that you have, or when you're comparing yourself to your neighbors and your colleagues? And they will give you lots of rich data. I think it's because of my gender. I think it's because of my ethnic background. I think it's because of my provincial status. My father was a carpenter. So when I go for interviews, I don't have that kind of network and that sifarish. And that qualitative data is important. But at the end of the day, in the report or the publication that we're presenting, we also want to give the hard statistics. What are the average salary? What's the average salary breakdown? Rural versus urban, one province versus the other, one gender versus the other. And for that, we need quantitative data. And that's where that's the direction that you're going to opt for. Based on the research questions, the research objectives, the significance of the research, you may have to abandon your interpretivist or fixed background philosophy and opt for both qualitative and quantitative research. And then obviously there's some research where just qualitative data is enough. So do look at your research questions before you're deciding. Now, what are the types of qualitative research tools? Here are the big four ones. They're interviews. These are also known as IDIs, in-depth interviews. It involves asking questions, listening to and recording answers from an individual or a group in a structured, semi-structured, or unstructured format. Obviously, this entails taking informed consent before and prior to that also IRB approval from your institution review board. A little bit more about the structured, semi-structured, and unstructured format. This, just because you have an unstructured interview guide doesn't mean that you won't have research questions and research objectives. You would always have them. But an unstructured format just means that you may have points where you're going to ask them generally about, let's say, what kind of experiences they have gaining loans from a microfinance officer. And then you may have prompts, and that's what an unstructured form. The unstructured format at this point does not mean that you go into the interview without having clear research objectives. And with the other extreme, the structured questionnaire, you have fixed questions, one question, two questions, six questions. And then with each interview, you ask those questions in those same order, etc. There are some samples at the end of this presentation. Again, I'm not sure how much time we have to cover those, but we will try. And then obviously, if you don't like these samples, good idea is to go onto Google Scholar and type, qualitative research, appendix questionnaire, PDF, and lots of questionnaires will be generated that have been published. It's a nice idea always to go backwards to see what people have published and disseminated, and then draft your own proposals for qualitative research. The second most common tool for collecting qualitative data is through focus group discussions. In this, you usually have 5 to 6 participants, and you may have the same, maybe using the same questionnaire that you use for in-depth interviews, but you have to be very careful to give everybody an equal chance to speak and make sure that you're encouraging everyone. Now, the pros and the cons of each are that sometimes people will share things one-on-one, which they won't share in focus group discussions, and vice versa. Sometimes people will share things in groups, which they wouldn't share if they were alone in an interview with you. So this is why people usually use both these tools together. They may have 20 interviews and then 2 focus group discussions as well, because both have their own contributions to make. Observation data is basically, let's say you've had an interview with doctors asking them what happens during a surgical procedure and what kind of support the nurses and the ward attendants are giving them. And then you've had a focus group discussion with 5, 6 surgeons related to the same nature. But you're not so confident about their answers. And in this case, you want to actually take permission to stand in and watch what actually happens in the surgical setting. At that point, you may realize that some of the interview answers and the FGD responses were enough or sufficient, but there were a lot of things that the doctors and the surgeons in the surgical unit or in the ward were not able to share with you. And you might find a perspective from the nurse or the ward attendant that the doctors were not able to share. The last tool is obviously document analysis. Now, this involves selection of relevant documents, let's say government documents, Pakistan Economic Survey notes of data collectors, which you start reading, or the notes of social workers or family planners who are working with the population welfare department. And you start analyzing those qualitatively through content or discourse analysis or narrative analysis to see themes and codes. Again, there are examples of this at the end of this presentation. So one very important concept that we usually hear about related to qualitative research is inductive reasoning. And by definition, this just means that you go and aim for data collection or qualitative data collection to generate a theory from the data. However, this is not a linear process. You'll see this at 2 o'clock with the quantitative researcher. They're going to give you a linear process, or what's known as the hourglass figure for quantitative research. But in this, you'll see, I'll draw your notice to, points 4, 5B, 5A, 5, and actually this is moving in a circle. So what happens with qualitative research is that we've got research questions. We've decided who to sample, where to collect data from. We go in to start collecting data, and then we start interpreting data. I'll make it a little bit more easier. Let's say I've conducted 2 qualitative interviews, and then I've come home at 6 o'clock in the evening. By 8 o'clock, I've rested a little bit and I've started reading my qualitative interviews. And I've started interpreting findings and developing some initial themes and codes. But at that point, I realized that I need to maybe expand this research and collect more data, or maybe shift to another site because I'm getting the same repetitive data from one data collection point. Or maybe it's not enough just to collect data from women, but I need to interview their mother-in-laws as well. And this is the benefit of qualitative research. It allows you to do simultaneous qualitative analysis and then go back to the field the next day or the next week and enrich your canvas and collect more data or explore more population groups or different sites. This may also lead to tightening, or what's called tightening or specification of the research question. So let's say your research question initially was, what kind of do children face corporal punishment in the homes when they are not going to school? But the research question gets expanded based on your initial data collection to, are children also being sent out in the evenings to work with their fathers as apprentices, or as or with their mothers when they go as domestic servants to people's houses? And are they also facing punishment or some form of abuse from employers who are not their technical or official employers? And so this is, again, a very big advantage of qualitative research. Whereas with quantitative research, you have fixed questionnaire, you sent it to your respondents, the data comes back to you, and then you start analyzing it. You can't change your research questions. You can't expand anything. You can't change your data collection sites. Everything that was in your proposal will probably be met right at the end. With qualitative research, you have this room for movement and expansion, which just means at the end of the day, you might have richer data. Okay, a little bit on hypothesis generation in qualitative research. Initially, with qualitative research, there was no such thing. Qualitative researchers used to hate that, even if somebody even associates this word. But then here's the movement. Researchers have started developing hypotheses by listening to what the research participants say after that data collection. And this is the grounded theory method, actually, which argues for these 2 basic principles. Number 1, questioning rather than measuring, and generating hypotheses using theoretical coding. So what qualitative researchers have now agreed is that with qualitative research, you can do non-testable hypothesis. So I'll go a little bit back. With quantitative research, what happens is that you go into the field to test a hypothesis. You've done your literature review or you've done previous studies, you have a hypothesis. Let's say the hypothesis, a statement of prediction, is that women who faced sexual abuse in childhood as adults will have urinary problems. They will have health problems related to urinary incontinence, things like that. So that's a hypothesis. Now we're going to go into the field to test this, whether it's true or not. And we could have three outcomes. We prove that, yes, this is true. We prove we do, or that it's not true, or that we have no data either way to show yes or no. Now, with qualitative research, what happens is that hypotheses can be drafted based on literature review. So far, we're on the same platform as quantitative researchers, but this is working hypothesis or non-testable hypothesis. What qualitative researchers do is that they aim to go into the field to collect data, not to test the hypothesis, but they may refer back to a hypothesis that has been generated by other researchers and refer to it in their write-up. But the aim is not to prove it statistically that this many women actually have suffered from UTI disease because of abuse. But it's just to share more data qualitatively. So in that sense, this is a good progress as well. Why? Because of this, if you refer back to the onion model, most researchers are moving towards a pragmatic model, which is mixed methods research. So we have to find a way to present both our qualitative and our quantitative data together. You will notice that researchers are publishing mixed methods papers, or they are separating their projects and publishing a quantitative paper and a qualitative paper related to the same project. But what the audience will do, what we'll do as researchers, is we will read both those papers together. And so there shouldn't be any contradictions. And that's also very important to remember when you're planning your qualitative research and also presenting it. So another very famous concept in qualitative research, and I also consider this a very big advantage, is reflexivity, which entails recognizing your biases as a researcher and involves questioning one's own taken for granted assumptions. So one of the biggest limitations or criticisms against qualitative researchers is that there's bias involved. The researcher is always there. They are involved with their participants. They may get affected by the emotions of the participant. They may overrepresent certain data or certain emotions of the participant because they are inspired or motivated or affected by those emotions. And so what do we do to make qualitative research valid, reliable, credible, trustworthy? We will cover a little bit of that again later. But one option is that qualitative researchers are trained for reflexivity. When they're interviewing participants, they are constantly aware of what they are thinking and feeling. They acknowledge that they have their own emotions, there are assumptions, there are political leniences. There are things that your fathers have told you, which will affect your emotions and your inclinations, and then your write-up of your findings. So now what do? At this point, you reevaluate your findings, you try to remain as objective as possible, and you feed reflexive insight back into your next set of interviews. And then you ensure reliability, which I'm going to actually cover first. So another way of managing reflexivity or the limitations of the biases of researcher is this, trustworthiness. Qualitative research is incomplete without respondent validation and triangulation. So how do you assure this kind of credibility? You can do member checking by presenting the findings to your participants. You may also present your findings to the participants who were part of your study, but you may also present your findings to a population group that was similar but did not participate in your study. Once you share your main findings or your themes with them, if they agree and they confirm those findings, then that's credibility of your research. Another main way of assuring reliability is through transferability. And this is the use of thick description, rich details, which enables transferability. Remember, when another researcher reads your data, there should be enough information. One of the main problems that our students face is that they say the journal is telling us to write a qualitative paper and they've given us a word limitation of 5,000 words, whereas we have data, we can write a paper of 25,000 words. The good news is you can attach this as an appendix. And this is very good for not just your reliability of your research, but also for future researchers and other researchers who are inspired by your research and who want to extend or redo your research in many ways. So another way of assuring transferability is purposive sampling techniques to select participants who are representative of the population of interest. This will happen at drafting stage, and hopefully your IRB or your department who's reviewing your proposal will help you in this. But obviously, it's something that you have to take into account as well. Then there's dependability. This is the auditing approach with records of all phases of the research, audio recording, photos, interview transcripts, and data analysis decisions being collected and presented. Now, usually if you run a grant, your grant body or your research institution will ask you for all this information, and you know prior to this. But at the same time, please remember that if you're doing an independent research also, your supervisor, thesis supervisor will ask for this information. And apart from that, international journals and their editors are asking for this information. They will not publish it online. Some of this data they may publish as appendices, but they are asking you for this data. I've just recently been through this for an AI, predictive AI research, where they asked for our coding data and so much information that was not going through an appendix, but basically they wanted to check the reliability. And did we actually do this research, or did we generate it, or did we ask help from people who we are not giving credit to? Because it was the first time that we did predictive AI research. So the final one is confirmability. This is personal values or theoretical inclinations of the researcher, not swaying the conduct of research and finding derived from it. And how do you assure this? This is done by data being checked and rechecked through the data collection and analysis process. You may also ask your senior colleagues, your peers, like your deans. Sometimes your deans are very kind. They may actually help you with this confirmation process. And then the other two ways of doing this is through clear coding schemes, which is also published usually. Most of your coding schemes are published in your publications, and through inter-rater reliability and peer check. So if you have a wonderful close department, a lot of your colleagues will come forward to do this for you because it's experience for them as well. So so this is trustworthiness of data, but I've missed a slide, so I'm going to go back. So what are the pros and cons of qualitative research? I'm going to go with the limitations first. We know that there's researcher subjectivity, but there are ways to manage this. We also know that it's not generalizable, and by definition, qualitative research is not supposed to be generalizable. You're supposed to be only interviewing a small select group, but it's nice to share it that very honestly that this is a limitation as well. Let's say I've interviewed 20 uh, uh, non-binary gender groups from Pakistan. But at the end of the day, they're only from Pakistan, or they might only be from Punjab. So it's important to know this as a limitation. It just means that there's more scope for future researchers to do this research in other regions or other provinces. Now, qualitative research, another big thing, again, I think of this as an advantage. It takes more time and energy. I find that I spend more time with my qualitative research, reading it, analyzing it, developing themes, which I don't do with quantitative research. I will plug it into a software and then I'll start generating statistics. So I feel very close to my qualitative research. And I find that even 5 years later, I will return to that qualitative data. You know, I'm sharing a data set with my students and saying, oh, I published 2 papers. When I return to that data set, there's more data emerging because I'm a new person 5 years from now. And there are things that I'm reading that I couldn't pick up earlier. So it does take more time and energy, but it's very rewarding and it's very rich. It's also very hard to repeat and replicate. And then there's also lack of numerical data. So let's say you're trying to disseminate qualitative research to government stakeholders. They might not have time to listen to you. And that's a big problem as well. But then what are the benefits? It provides in-depth understanding. It helps to explore complex issues, which quantitative data can't. It helps to generate theories, which we need. Pakistan definitely needs more theories. We are really lagging behind. It helps to enhance data validity through different tools like IDIs, FGDs, and participant observation. And then it's also very flexible and adaptable to different researchers, to different data collection contexts, to different settings, and to different population groups. So we move to, and I'm 23 minutes in. So there are different ways of analyzing qualitative data. There's content analysis, which focuses on categorizing and coding and quantifying specific words. Again, what's not usually mentioned over here is that this requires a lot of time and energy, reading, rereading. And this is where teams matter. So usually what teams do is that, let's say there are two principal investigators, there's myself and Dr. Hamna. I will read data independently and she will read it. She will generate codes and I will generate codes, and then we will match them. And usually, invariably, the first time what happens is that we may have 5 themes maximum that are common, but there will be 15 other themes and codes which are not common. And this is the beauty of how God has created us. We will all analyze data differently. And another beauty of qualitative research is that numbers don't matter over here. Let's say we interviewed 20 participants, but only one of them generated a certain theme for us. That theme is important. That coding is very important, and we can present it, and it is accepted by the research community. Whereas with quantitative research, you'll notice if there's an outlier, they'll tell us leave it out. We don't want to see that as part of the statistics pool. Then there's narrative analysis, which focuses on interpreting and understanding the stories and personal narratives shared by individuals. So usually, this is associated with document analysis or case studies and long interviews. There's also discourse analysis, which examines the social, cultural, and power relations that shape language use in different contexts. A lot of people from the humanities are now using this, and from my colleagues in the English literature department. And grounded theory we've covered, but it's an approach to qualitative analysis that aims to develop theories. These theories, you'll notice, and this is why quantitative researchers are now opting for qualitative research first, because they can't find theories. They can't find a hypothesis to prove when they're going in to collect statistical data. So they first take a pause, give themselves 2 years, go collect qualitative data, develop a theory, and then go and test that. And this is amazing. There's some of the research that I've sent to you in the reading material is a research joined by myself. I'm from social sciences, a colleague from economics, a colleague from public health, and somebody who's from pure medical sciences, natural sciences. And the push for that project was from the medical sciences, because they were statistical researchers, but they wanted us to go back and collect qualitative data to generate theories so that they could test it in the surgical setting. There's also thematic analysis. This is most widely and commonly used and involves identifying and analyzing and reporting patterns of themes within a data, such as interview transcripts, survey responses, observational notes. Teachers are and teaching administration is most commonly doing this, especially with the emergence of AI. So what kind of sampling techniques? I'm going to cover all 5. Typical case sampling. This is sampling a case because it exemplifies a dimension of interest. Let's say the experiences of free patients versus paying ones. Then there's snowball sampling, which is sampling from the network of preceding participants. So you interview one doctor and then you ask them that please refer another doctor that may have the same experience or is dealing with the same cadre of patients. Extreme or deviant case sampling. This is sampling cases that are unusual or that are unusually at the far end of a particular dimension of interest. Let's say not just prisoners, but juvenile prisoners. Maximum variation sampling. This type of sampling is used to ensure a wide variation. This is usually qualitative researchers initially did not used to opt for this. They used to consider even 5 participants enough. But now a lot of people will collect qualitative data with 250 women, because they're trying to generate responses and reflect participation from different provinces of a very large nation. So maximum variation sampling is something that Pakistanis are adopting now. They will usually never opt for only 5, 6 women or male participants, because it just means it's not going to reflect our 250 million population rising at the rate of 2.5%. So theoretical sampling, this is ongoing data collection for generating theory. This is sampling that does not stop until you reach saturation point, until you feel that there are no new responses coming in. And this can take years and years and years as well. Obviously, it takes a lot of patience and time and funding as well. We're just in time, so I'm 30 minutes in, and I'm going to spend the next 15 minutes talking about samples from publications, because this is the missing link. I mean, talking about theoretical concepts is good, but how do you actually make it into a product that can be disseminated and used for policy mobilization? So this is my first sample. It's an FGD questionnaire. You'll notice what's important over here is the demographic data on top. You should have participant codes. You should have the list of genders, age groups, and current occupations. That doesn't mean that this is all that you need. You may, depending on your population group and your study, want to collect more demographic data, for example, a literacy level. But you'll notice that I won't cover all the questions, but I'll just bring your attention to question number 3. This is a question. What do you think can be done to avoid the problems if we need to shift to online teaching for other reasons apart from COVID-19 pandemic? Now, here I felt the need to add a prompt because from my experience, when I did dummy data collection, I found that FGD participants could not understand the question really well. So the prompt over here was, for example, another pandemic or regional instability or disability and physical access issues. At that point, how would you answer this question? So please, when you're drafting your FGD questionnaires or your IDI questionnaires, do have a dummy test with somebody, even if it's your colleague, and see where you might need to have prompts ready, because you don't have time during IDIs and FGDs to develop these prompts. And people will not have that much. In an average IDI, a person will last 30 to 40 minutes. That's the quality time that they will give to you. Beyond that, it's downhill. And the same with an FGD. FGD obviously being more complicated because if you have 5 to 6 participants and you're trying to give all of them equal time and you have only 1 hour, and again, people will tell you that we had an FGD for 3 to 4 hours, but the attention span of participants lasts in an FGD not for more than 50 minutes. Okay, here is a little bit about, I can't see this because the bar, samples from my study related to FGD question and what kind of practicality, what kind of practicalities that you need to take care of, or a checklist. So I'll leave this to you to go through. You can please add to it as well. I might be missing something. This is an example of presenting qualitative thematic findings. Now, why I chose to present this is because you'll notice that it's usually, if you just ignore the last column, the third column, this is usually what you'll see in qualitative papers in the past, 5, 6 years from now, prior to this. Just the major theme, and where the heading is saying category or subcategory. It could also say code or subcode. It could also say theme or subtheme. And you'll notice that there are 1, 2, 3, there are 2 major categories, environment and health delivery system. And under those, there are 3 other subpart categories. And beyond, and for each category, there are further subcategories. So let's just pick one. Under environment, there are economic problems. And under those economic problems, there are 2 major ones, poverty and small loan and high installment rates. But because the qualitative data was collected from 442 women, you'll notice that I've chosen to report the frequencies as well. And now people are collecting qualitative data from 12 participants, but then also reporting the frequencies and statistics. Prior to this, qualitative researchers they were not very happy to share the quantitative data because they wanted to emphasize that even if one participant was saying this, it has value and worth. But I think it's your choice. If you want to report the frequencies and the percentages, even if the frequency and percentage is low and only one person is saying it's of value to the reader. So this is your choice. But the good news is that you're not going to submit a qualitative paper with some statistics reported and people sending it back to you and saying, what is this? They do recognize that this is important also. Again, this is a qualitative paper, strictly qualitative paper, and I've reported the social demographic characteristics. And now, even again, I'll repeat this, that even with 8 participants, your qualitative reviewers are asking you to report the demographic characteristics, if not in tables, but then in write-ups. There are a lot of young researchers who will end up with qualitative data, lots and lots of data, but they have no demographic data. They have no data related to what the income was about the participant, what kind of a house they were living in, did they have any children? And that actually compromises their ability to publish their findings. So please don't forget to collect this data. Okay, another very important example, I'll spend 1 or 2 minutes over here, is how to develop themes. So again, I want you to ignore the last 2 columns on the right and just concentrate on the first column, which says theme. Now, this is the themes that, for example, I collected, and then Dr. Hamna developed, and then Dr. Khatija developed, and we did this independently. And then we came back and we combined our notes, and we discussed which themes were common and which themes were unique to all of us. And obviously, we didn't leave any behind. We went back to theme generation and we exhausted all possibilities. And I think we do this at least 6 to 7 times. Once all our themes are ready, we write them together, and then we use Excel or whatever software you want to try to group these themes into smaller categories. Now I'm going to go through the first one. Let's say we've started collecting themes for health service delivery. One respondent, and I've attached the code of the participant so that if I want to go back to the detailed code, this is helpful because when I'm finally writing these thematic headings in my publication or in my report, I also want to quote a specific quote. And at this point, let's say I want to pick up the quote from C001. So then I'll just go back to C. Thank God, thankfully, I've written it over here, C001. So I just have to, that's my participant code. So let's say again, these are the themes that I've derived from health service delivery. The health centers are far away, there's lack of awareness, there's expensive treatment, there's poverty, there's expensive medicine, and there's lack of education. But I decide on the 8th try that all of these can be collapsed under one sub-theme, which is access. And then beyond that, I've refined it to access to health center so that it's easier for the reader to understand. And if you go down and check the blue column, which is 2C3B, you'll find another subcategory, which is access for maternal health, which is completely different. So this is the long and very fun and enjoyable journey of theme development. It takes time. Nothing else is required except your intellect and your time. And I will recommend one other thing. No matter which software is doing this for you, we usually use NVivo. There are new softwares coming up. Please do the manual coding version first, because when you do the manual coding and when you generate themes through NVivo, invariably, and I promise you this, if the data is very rich, NVivo will miss certain themes that you will pick up. And this is the beauty of God, the brain that God has given you. So please do the manual coding first, as much as you can, and then go for a software analysis and then compare the two. Okay, this is an example of a participant observation tool that we developed for intergenerational learning between elderly and youth, and it was published. So you'll notice that just some points. Nonverbal communication is very important for data collection and then data analysis, because what expressions and what body language tells you is sometimes more important than what words can tell you. And so this is why developing your participant observation tool is very important as well. Just to put this in context, we were measuring the emotions and the responses of elderly people who were living in an old age home, isolated from their family. And when youth was coming to visit them 3 times a week for intergenerational activities, like asking them about the past, asking them about civic participation, etc. So what our participant observers do, and here the complexity obviously is that your data collection team now has more than 3 members. There are data collectors, there are interviewers, or those who are facilitating the focus group discussion, and then there are participant observers. So you have at least 3, and then you may have note keepers, and then may have people who are helping you for audio recording. So please don't try to do all of this alone, because you won't be able to. It's humanly not possible. But some of the responses that we decided, and this was also developed through a literature review, was, are they smiling? Were they content? So there were 7 positive responses, but then we had 7 negative responses, like, are they showing distress? Are they showing confusion? Are they restless, etc.? So all of this is there with you. The actual publications are attached as well in the reading material. Now, what did we do with this observation material? Based on the 7 positive emotions versus 7 negative emotions, we analyze these qualitative participant observation emotions quantitatively. We summarized the responses, and then we made an aggregate, and then we allocated a cutoff. The cutoff was 60. So anybody with emotions above 60, we relegated that into the positive realm, and anybody below 60 negative. So overall, we were able to There were details, but then overall also we, in a snapshot, we were able to tell people whether the intergenerational learning activity overall gave a positive effect to the elderly population or not. Some people will choose not to report this statistically and only report it qualitatively. Again, it's your choice. This is a wonderful checklist for qualitative submissions. I would recommend you to use it while you're collecting qualitative data. Before you submit your qualitative data project proposal to your IRB or your department, and while you're collecting data, and also before you're preparing your results for journal publication. So it helps at 3 different stages. Of course, if you're not happy with Corec, I know that there are other checklists for qualitative submissions. Please use any or either or, but definitely use one, because again, we're human beings. We may forget something. For example, forgetting the description of the sample is a common problem. Forgetting how we derived themes and reporting to the audience what software we used, again, is very common. Uh, 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 a little bit about, I'm not going to cover in vivo data analysis. Like I mentioned last year, we need a separate session for this. But I would mention a little bit, I'm out of time. I'll mention a little bit about the comparison of manual coding and AI generative analysis, because it's the hot topic, it's relevant. Most people are now using AI for thematic analysis, and they're punching in their qualitative data, even into ChatGPT, whatever is free and accessible, and they are generating themes. This is good, do it. It's a tool that's available for us, but please don't do it without using a manual approach, your own intellect, and then also maybe a better qualitative software, an experienced one that has been updated for many years, like NVivo, and then compare all 3. I'll give you an example. I had data from a publication that was already done, published in 2021, and I had the data set. So what I did as an example is that sorry, this is Gohar. What I did as an example is I plugged it into ChatGPT. So what I already had is themes and themes and sub-themes that I had generated almost 2-3 years ago and published. And you can see them over here on the right. There were 3 major themes and lots of sub-themes. I'll just talk a little bit. The idea was talking about challenges in providing surgical procedures during COVID-19, and from the perspective of operating department practitioners. They are known as ODPs in Pakistan. And so, for example, I found one theme, stigma, and the sub-theme was that police and health department harasses them. Okay, when I plugged in all this data, all the transcripts into ChatGPT, this is the ChatGPT themes, just these 7 themes in orange on the left. Some of them are similar, social stigma and isolation. I got that as well. Emotional and mental health strain. I kind of got that under struggles as a sub-theme. But do you see that there's no comparison between AI generated themes and family member and what you've done as a research team through manual coding and then verified through a software like NVivo? What's the conclusion? Use both, use all 3. Use a software, use your manual coding, and use artificial intelligence as well. It could be that artificial intelligence is giving you a breakdown or giving you another idea for a subheading or telling you to separate 2 headings that are compact. So I'll give you an advantage of ChatGPT. I realized that strengths could have actually been separated. I've put too many sub-themes together. So in that sense, it can be beneficial, but please, I don't know what to say, but the warning, especially if students are here with us, the request I can say is not to use ChatGPT or any AI tool by itself for qualitative analysis. Okay. The benefits, obviously, of incorporating generative AI is streamlined and expedited research. AI, so let's say you have very little time for data analysis. You need to show your grant body that you've submitted a publication. That's where AI is going to be helpful. It's also very helpful at literature review stage. So instead of just using it for data analysis, Use it at literature review stage. It's also very good in identifying additional categories that you may not have developed, which is what we just mentioned. And then it's like a helpful friend who's going to help you increase reliability and help you with confirming your coding and your analysis. The limitations I've already discussed. Here are my references. I've stopped exactly in 45 minutes, and I'm handing it over back for question and answers, please. Go ahead. I'll leave the slides on so that.
I'm sorry, we are all here. We're listening to, enthralled by your talk. There's so much to learn from you, Sarah. Mavish must be compiling the questions, and I see a lot of questions. Yeah. So I think there were a lot of very good questions. I think so far we have over, I think, 100 questions already.
Yeah.
I think what some are asking about difference between qualitative and quantitative. We'll be covering it in the next session as well. I would like to go to questions that are more related to you. I saw some about different. Please, over to you, Mavish.
So thank you so much, Sarah. This was very informative, and even I learned so much from your talk. We have a range of questions. I have, sort of sorted them out. So the first set of questions is about how to address the conflicting conclusions in quantitative and qualitative data. Let's suppose if a researcher is using both and there's a conflict in the conclusions, then what should we do?
Okay, so this happens. I'll give you one example that my qualitative data with microfinance women borrowers only reflected the pain and the agony of loan installment repayments and the challenges, whereas quantitative data reflected that 98% are repaying their loans. So I couldn't understand how to write one paper's conclusions that women are very unhappy with the installment rates. They're having serious problems in returning loans. But where it merges is and this is I'm so happy for this question. This is where you can return to qualitative data and ask the women, well, if you had all these problems, how do you have a 98% response rate? And so then more data comes through. The answers were, we take it from our relatives, we take it from our spouses, we pay people back. So we sell things from our house because we are dependent on and there's a complex problem of microfinance loan and cyclical debt. So the reason why they prioritize paying back, even though they can't afford it, is because they want to retake the loan next year. And they're not just taking it for microfinance loans, they are taking it for their daughter's wedding or their sons to buy their sons a rickshaw. And so therefore, they are not using their business profits to pay back. And so they're justifying also borrowing from relatives and paying, or from spouses, or selling things and paying back because they've actually used the funds for other elements. And so this is where qualitative research, the initial contradiction between qualitative and quantitative data, helped us to go back to qualitative research and our participants to resolve the conflict and explain that, yes, there is a 97% response, but this is not a reflection of success of the microfinance loan officers and the loan bodies, but rather the tactics and the survival strategies of the women borrowers. So actually, the conclusion also is that if you come up with a contradiction, go back to your data, go back to your participants and respondents.
And explore some more.
Because real life is full of contradictions. If it's going to be all neat, then it's not real life data.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I think that when you have the contradiction, you have to go back to the data and do some more research. I mean, view it more critically. Stick to your focus of the research, because the research focus needs to be well defined. That's why we say that we have to define the focus so well that there's no ambiguity when you are exploring the data or working with the data. The second set of questions is about researchers' bias. So different people have phrased it differently, but let's just talk about how to minimize researcher bias in qualitative research.
Okay. This is a lot of, actually, this can be a whole session in itself. But the criticism usually against qualitative researcher is this: there's bias. But qualitative researchers who are experienced will argue about this. How can it be biased if we have a team of researchers who are, and this is known as conformability. We have a team of researchers, and I'll give a real life example. It was a passion of mine to do research on Hazara Shias and Para Chinar Shias, but I'm a Shia myself, so there was a lot of bias. So the tactic that I adopted was to ensure conformability and reliability of research. Was I got people who were non-Shias, non-Pakistanis, not from sociology background, psychology, from other disciplines, all to be part of my team, and I had to force some of them because they were not interested, but I had to force them that I need you for confirmability of my findings. So that's number one. How do you, and I'm trying to give real life example of how to reduce biases by expanding your team, recognizing your own biases and your limitations, and then expanding your team. Now, another way to ensure that biases are reduced is by member checking. And this is going back to your participants who were part of the sample and who may not have been part of the sample. So let's say I have these 6 themes. And you're not going to be able to share all the findings with them. Like, let's say you have 400 pages of transcripts. Now, that's not what you're going to share back with them, but you'll share that final table, that table which has the themes and the sub-themes. And you'll say, well, this is what we found from the research question. You'll share the informed consent with them again, tell them that the study was about identifying problems of operation department practitioners during COVID-19 pandemic. Tell us, you operation department practitioners, 5 of you who were part of the study, and 5 of you who are not part of the study. Tell us whether these findings are accurate. Have we left anything out? And this is always reported in the publications as well. Many a times they will confirm the findings, and sometimes they will say, "Oh, this is remaining." And that also can then be added to your research, and that also reduces bias, because you see, it's not just bias of my emotions or being part of the project, but it can be a bias in reading and reading transcripts and generating themes. Let's say I'm leaning towards negative experiences of operation department practitioners and I've missed the positive experiences. Let's say there were 1 or 2 operation department practitioners who were talking about the excellent support that they got from the government. There were masks always available, but I missed that altogether because my bias was to pick up the negative aspects. But somebody from the participants then pointed this out, that no, please don't say this. Masks were always available, just the entire kit was not available. And I think that was my experience. I actually missed that because I kept stressing on they didn't have the whole kit, but they did have the masks. So we had to give that credit. Another way of reducing biases are these middle two one, the dependability or the auditing approach, making sure that you have your photos, your recording, interview transcript data. Senior researchers will go in, collect data, and you'll ask them for a photo, or you'll ask them where you collected data, and they'll say, we don't remember it's not that they haven't collected the data. It's just that they were so busy doing the IDIs and the FGDs that they forgot they didn't have an assistant or a research supporter. They don't have pictures and they don't exactly remember the address of where they collected the data. Now, the auditing approach just means that if somebody else wants to go in and collect that data to find out, let's say you've done a qualitative community needs assessment and you've said that the gutters are always blocked. Somebody needs to be able to verify that 1 year from now. Is it still blocked? Was the research of any use? Let's say you shared that community needs assessment with the government and they've promised to make changes, but the researcher says, no, I don't remember the location. That's a problem. That's why the auditing approach, I mean, these are things that are overlooked by senior researchers. And then transferability just means thick data. Students will always, or young researchers who have 3 months to collect qualitative data, publish it, defend it, will say, how do we do this? And this is a challenge. I have no solutions for this. This is why sometimes if our students have only 3 to 6 months to collect data, summarize it, analyze it, present it in a thesis. And this is not just students, this is us as well. Maybe the grant body has only given us 3 to 6 months. Then we are not able to collect that much data. What is beneficial is that if you have a large team, so let's say I have 6 PIs and all six of us are dedicated to collecting 20 interviews each. That's still a lot of data, okay? But let's say I'm alone and I can only collect 20. And so these type of real life issues will always hit us. These are those curveballs, and we just have to manage them. We may write it as a limitation. I was a lone researcher. I only had 3 months to collect data and then to report the results. And so this is one of my limitations. I only did 20 interviews. There's never any harm to acknowledge your limitations and to write it in your report or your publication.
Yeah,
But
thank you
quantitative
so much.
but one thing is that people will still say that quantitative data is more robust and reliable and valid. This is not true. Qualitative research. And remember, your transcripts can be anonymized and attached as an appendix and put online. Even if your journal or your editors don't want it, put it on ResearchGate. Put it on some open resource. Uh, that's proof enough that you've collected that data and that there's no bias.
Thank you so much, Sarah. The next set of questions closely relate to this one. We have some participants who have asked about ensuring trustworthiness in data, and I think your answer has covered that bit. The next question is, what is saturation in qualitative research, and what indicators or criteria do you use to determine when data saturation has been reached for a particular theme?
Thank you for this question. The main thing with saturation point is simultaneous data analysis. When a person is asked, how did you reach saturation point? And the trick question over here is that when were you analyzing data? Immediately they should say that I collected data during these 2 weeks, and I collected an average of 2 interviews per day. In the evening, when I came back home, I started analyzing those data and developing themes. That's the key part of saturation point. You cannot claim to have reached saturation point if you are not simultaneously analyzing your data. And this is where I always say that you should love qualitative data. I mean, it shouldn't be a burden. It shouldn't be something that's imposed upon you. I'm doing a thesis. I have to collect qualitative data because I'm not good with quantitative data. Because then you're not going to be reading your transcripts when you come home. It's a long journey, but you can make it fun. It's about your attitude. Because if you're doing audio recording and you're collecting data on notes, you then have to come back home, transfer them as transcripts. Then you have to make another file and start read. What I do is I do color coding. And then you start making one draft of themes. And so you've got themes on from the first day. And let's say you have, I can only do it number wise right now for lack of time. So let's say I've developed 10 themes in the first 2 days of data collection. And then the next 2 days of data collection, I've developed 5 more themes and I've confirmed the previous 10 themes. So I have 15 themes. Then let's say I've completed 4 days, I'm in the next 2 days. So I've completed 6 days of data collection, but I've only generated one new theme. I have 16 themes. I've confirmed the previous 15 themes and I've gotten one new theme. And this is how it declines naturally. Real life is like that. Very rare is it that your subsequent participants will not be confirming previous themes and that you will be continuously generating new themes over a month or 2 months. Maximum around in 3-4 months, depending on the research question, depending on the topic, depending on the emerging science. Let's say your topic is about AI. If your topic is about AI and what kind of tools teachers are using every day, you might not be able to reach saturation point very quickly because every interview that you have, somebody is.
I guess we have lost Sarah. Sarah, are you there?
Yes, it's an internet issue.
Yeah, it's the internet issue. Never mind. We are going to wait for Sarah to come back. Yeah, there she is. Sarah, are you back?
Yeah, I'm back. Where did I couldn't see somebody muted me. Okay, anyway, where was I? I'd like.
You were talking about how when you reach certain limits of within the themes, and you were talking about saturation, data saturation.
Okay, so what I was mentioning in a nutshell, I'm sorry that you missed that part, that if the first 2 interviews versus the next 6 interviews will usually confirm your first 10, 15 themes. But post that, the themes will go down. Sorry. post that, the theme generation will go down. At the same time, be very careful of your research question. The point I was trying to make is that if your research question is about which new AI tools teachers are using, you'll find that you won't meet saturation point very quickly, because every interview that you have, every day, every week, teachers will be giving you new tools. Change your research question. Let's say the research question is about how did the teachers adapt to AI? At that point, you may reach the saturation point very quickly, because the question is not about new tools. It's about how teachers have adapted themselves to new technology. So saturation point is, again, refer back to your research question. Two, about researcher commitment to data analysis on a daily basis, developing your transcripted files from your audios and your notes, analyzing those themes, generating them, and then matching them as the days and the weeks go by. Some researchers, depending on the research question, will reach saturation point at the fourth interview or the fourth day. Some will not reach it 2 weeks from now. Some will not reach it within 6 months. That usually depends on the research question.
Yeah, thank you so much. So different people are actually taking different connotation of your responses. Some comments show us that like people are asking if does it mean that qualitative research cannot be undertaken by a single person. Sarah is not saying that. Please go back to what she's saying. The recording of this webinar will be available on our YouTube channel. I understand that this is a heavy load of information that we have shared in 1 hour. So please don't misunderstand anything. Go back to the recording if you have any ambiguities and watch it once again. My last question from you, Sarah, and this has been posted by an international participant from Nigeria, and very valid actually, that how do we generate our own theories from qualitative data?
Okay, by definition, theory is never a fact. It's just an rationality that you're trying to prove from data, which you are open to changing. I mean, theorists themselves will change their theories. So let's say a theory is a lived belief of religion, that religion cannot be defined. And this is a qualitative theory that was generated recently, lived theory of religion, which says that a researcher is saying that when I collected data over a period of time, I found that people define religion based on how they are able to live and survive in a capitalist modern society. So for some, Islam is about saying their prayers 5 times a day, but for some, Islam is about their connection with God. And for some, Islam is about only saying their prayers in congregation. And so religion is about, and so this is a theory. Now, this is a theory generated by one researcher. Some may agree, some may disagree. But where did it come from? It came from the qualitative data. So theory is not something that will come from your mind, because then that is not scientific research. Theory has to come from your participants. And usually the theory that a researcher will decide to present will be the one that is most commonly reflected by their participant responses. Or something that they have critically analyzed on top, like the theory of lived religion is what the researcher is critically analyzing, that every participant that I interview is defining religion differently. For them, Islam means something else. And the 10 Christians that I interviewed, for each of them, they've defined Christianity differently. And the extension of their theory is that they believe that in this modern capitalist society where people are very educated and their education system is teaching them about critical analysis, therefore they have become like this. Whereas 100 years from now, people define religion based on what their priest or their imam or their religious leader or scholar was defining it as, or they couldn't define it at all. This is theory will be, in a nutshell, theory will be generated from qualitative research from the data. And it will always, and whenever you read theory-based papers or books, you'll notice that at the end, the researcher is telling you, this is what.
We've lost your voice, Sarah.
And others are most welcome to as well. Why are theory papers so difficult to argue, to publish? And like I've written I've written 2 theory papers, but nobody quotes them. So my supervisor used to tell me that there's a researcher mafia. Let's there is a
Absolutely.
let's say there's a Western scholar who's got a great network. And if they write a theory, he will contact at least 10, 20 of his scholars and ask him to write a paper based on that theory. And they will also get published in international impact factor journals. I wrote a theory, and even the people who wrote my book reviews did not pick up on that theory. I can't do anything about that. That's weakness of my networking, weakness of my dissemination, and weakness of me, the researcher, or the country or the region that I belong to. Though I don't want to blame my country, but that's just the way it is. It's not that Pakistanis and South Asians are not writing about theory, but it's that our dissemination and the dependency of theory generation and theory popularity really depends on the networking of the researcher and where they are placed in society, to be very honest. At the same time, this is not to dissuade anybody, and just to answer the question that Mevish answered on behalf, God bless you, thanks Mevish. Qualitative research at first step should be done alone. This experience is very important for us. But the more we want our qualitative research to be disseminated, the more robust and the more reliable and credible that we want it to be, we can grow our teams. I can totally understand that as a PhD researcher or as a young researcher, we're doing projects alone. Remember that your editors will understand this. They will accept a one author article and with 6 participants and limited qualitative data being presented. By limited, I mean not valuable, but less data. At the same time, if they see 6 co-authors, they will judge that and review that paper much more strictly, because they will want that there are more theories. They will want that there were more qualitative tools adopted, because they know that there was a very rich team involved. So that doesn't mean that if you're a lone, I just recently submitted a qualitative research where I couldn't find a team, so I did it myself. So obviously that means that the editors will also appreciate that there's less data and that there are less tools adopted. I only did IDIs. I wasn't able to do FGDs or participant observation, etc.
Thank you so much. I think, in a nutshell, qualitative research is a very empowering experience because it helps the researchers to uncover deep and human-centric insights. You see, and at the end, you are wearing a lens of your own experiences. You can't get rid of that lens. With this, I'm gonna close the session. Thank you so much, Sarah. This was incredible insights on qualitative research today. And today we have another session on quantitative research, which will be led by Dr. Zishan Ali from the Hull University, UK. And it starts at 2 p.m. today. So join us back at 2 o'clock. If you haven't registered for this webinar, you still can join in. And let's explore the quantitative research after qualitative research and see what matches our interest and what works well for the research idea that we are working on. Thank you so much, Sarah. Have a good day.
Thank you so much. Bless you.
Yeah.
Good afternoon.